Coming up on this episode of Flirtations, we're talking to the universe, y'all, with our incredible guest, psychic activator and historical medium Emily Dexter. We're connecting to our inner magic and dating intuitively. Have you ever felt like there's a deeper wisdom inside you just waiting to be heard? Have you ever struggled to trust yourself and connect to your intuition, your own inner knowing? Today, we explore what it means to really trust yourself beyond the noise of fear, doubt, and past experiences. Emily shares how to talk to our spirit guides and how we can talk to the universe because indeed we're energy. The universe is energy and we're more intimately connected than you might think. So, if you've ever felt a spark of intuition but weren't sure how to follow it, or if you're curious about what it means to awaken to your true self, this episode is for you. Let's get into it, flirties.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties, we are going to be cultivating our inner magic today, dating intuitively with psychic activator and historical medium Emily Dexter on the show. Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
It's a big pleasure for me as well. I just have to have my fangirl moment if I can. I didn't tell you this, but several years ago when I was just getting started in my coaching journey and I was scrolling, you were a creator I came across and your messages just spoke to me and gave me so much hope and inspiration that I was actually this wasn't a hobby, this wasn't a passion, this was a calling. And to just stick with it. Just do it, Benjamin.
That means so much to me. I've been in this industry a really long time and from basically the time I was in high school, and it's such a beautiful time that we get to exist in where we can share all this stuff out loud and find other people. And I do not take it for granted. And that just means so much. And I'm so glad to have been even just like a tiny little part of your journey is just, that's awesome.
Yes. And I've continued to follow. I just love what you talk about. It's refreshing, and I think it's something that has always been important, but just has even more meaning as so many of us, I think, are coming into this new level of consciousness, right? Kind of asking some different questions, not what I should do, what I am supposed to do, but how do I actually want to be, and how do I want to live? Like, what is truly feels right to me?
Yeah. And that is another beautiful thing about this time. I mean, with all of us waking up in different degrees, everyone's waking up in some capacity.
Yeah.
The world is different than it was 5 years ago. And we can feel that. We know that the energy has shifted for us.
Yeah.
And that brings with it new questions. And we have the ability to ask those because for the first time in literally the history of the planet, the world is small. Like I can talk to you across the world on our little rectangles. And that's pretty neat. And I can hop on a plane and get anywhere in 24 hours. Of course, there's like, income things and like, can you afford that? But like, that is a thing that can feasibly be done. And that is magic in and of itself. So that question and posing that question, I think that's the big shift that's come up is it's not how am I going to be within a system that already exists, but how am I going to be in my own volition? Like, how am I going to be guided by what I need to be doing or what feels aligned to me? Yeah. And that's a huge differentiator. You know what I mean? And that even goes back to like intuitive dating. It's also like what is aligned with my being and less of like, how do I align with someone else? All the time, which is cool.
So cool. I hear this from the flirties all the time on calls and just talking about the podcast and making videos, right? Connecting on lives. It's like it's like we're shifting out of this paradigm of where for so long we were dating for survival, right? If you were a woman, you couldn't have a bank account. Like you really, if you wanted to make it, you got married to a guy, and that was really how this worked, and there was no other alternative, or you existed on the fringes, very undercover. And now we're shifting beyond that. Like I hear this from flirties all the time. I'm so tired of the rules, right? It seems like it's do this, don't do that. This is right, this is wrong. And now we're really starting to date from this place of what do I want, what fits for me, and what's really fulfilling. How can I create that fulfillment in all areas of my life, but certainly in my relationships too.
Yeah. And I think that's like energetically, that is the right way to go about anything all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
constantly. And I think it's something that I've at least learned in my life experience, but I've been intuitive again since I was basically born. I was very psychic. And then I cut it off because I was like, wait a second, this is weird. Never mind. And that didn't work. Well, I kind of came back into it. But, and then I came back into it a little later on. But I think energetically, it's now more about vibes than it ever has been, I guess, is the way I'm going to express it. Like, and that is an actual energetic sense, right? You're dating outside of the rules because you're doing things in any part of your life that you're feeling just like, ooh, I'm feeling pulled to that. I'm going to try this out. This feels like alignment. I'm going to see how that goes. And that a lot of times is outside of the typical traditional air quote structure that we're sitting within, but I'm going to go this way. And that is, I think, the way that we're headed to engage with the world in general. And the more you can do that, especially in dating, the more you're going to find right people. And of course you want to have validations and checks and like sit with your own boundaries and alignment there, as far as like your own rules you establish for yourself. But those vibes and like connecting in that way is a depth. It is creating depth and magic between each other. And that's neat.
Yeah. Really neat. And that's so where we're going today. And the conversation is right, how we can talk to the universe, how we can ask the universe some questions, spirit guides, the Clair senses, probably clairvoyance is the one I feel like most people have heard of, but there are 8. That is just one. Yeah. So we're going to be getting into some of that and ultimately just how you can trust yourself more, how you can really sit with yourself, even if it's uncomfortable at times, and ask yourself, what do I want? What do I need? What's important to me? So you can really be driven by your intuition. I hope after this episode that your intuition becomes a part of your dating strategy beyond the boundaries and the communication tips, right? It's ultimately your intuition is a huge driver. I'm so excited.
Me too. This is so fun. I've been on a couple like dating-esque kind of spots before, and it's just one of my favorite things to talk about because people will come to psychics like classically for love advice, right? It's like love or career, right? Like that is, and money comes in there too. And that's what they come to psychics for. And people will nowadays be like, I'm so sorry, I'm like being kind of cliche, but can I ask about love? I'm like, please ask about love. Like that is literally the force of magic that we have the most access to here on planet. So it makes you want to know about that. So I'm excited to dive into all of the things and help all of the flirties get more aligned. It's such a fun community you've built here. Like it really is.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. The flirties, we're all over the world, and I know they're going to be super in to this conversation. I want to ask here at the top. So you've felt intuitive for your whole life. Kind of said, no, this isn't right for a little while, but just how, I want to hear a little bit more about your story there.
Yeah. My story is it's not necessarily the same as a lot of people's. And I want to be really clear about that because I had a very unique kind of structure growing up. I live in Lake Tahoe and I was actually born and raised up here. And my family is very much a go outside family in general. We're on top of a mountain. So growing up for the first like 7 years of my life, I could see guides and ghosts and magic and talk to the fairies and the nature spirits and all these things. And I thought it was genuinely just normal. I thought everyone did that. That was just what it was. So when I would see like fantasy movies or whatever, I was like, that is how it is. Like, isn't that funny? And then I started to realize, I think I always make a joke about this, but other people would be like, my imaginary friend's a unicorn that does this, this, and this. I was like, really? My imaginary friend's this old guy that's up the street and he yells at me every time I ride by. Like, that's kind of funny. And started to kind of like process that in a different way. And eventually I brought it to my mom, who is just a wonderful, beautiful person, but very ill-equipped to deal with the level of questions I think I had in that space. Because I came up to her and I was raised very Catholic. My parents are still Catholic, but they're very accepting and open as long as I believe in anything. That's all that they really have ever wanted, which I'm very lucky and privileged to have that. And I know, but I went to her and I was like, hey mom, like these things happened to me. What's going on? And she was very sweet. But at the time she was just kind of like, oh, well, interesting. Go play. Like, just kind of like brush that off. And when you're a child, your parents are God, right? So I was like, oh, no, my mother does not know what's going on. I'm weird. This is wrong. And I tried to kind of start shutting that down.
Yeah.
through like basically stepping into like middle school and adolescence.
Okay.
It doesn't work to try to do that. We've all probably done that in certain capacities. Our feelings, our intuition, we've tried to shut that down. It doesn't work. And because it doesn't work, it ends up putting us into really bad situations because we shut it down to try to be normal, because people invalidate us, you name it. And then we lose all intuition. So I ended up in a really, really bad relationship, very abusive relationship out of high school. And I was still doing kind of psychic stuff, but I was really afraid of it at that point. There was a period of time in high school where I literally had my mom sleep in bed with me for like multiple nights in a row because I was just like, I'm scared there's something in my room that's staring at me. And she didn't know what was going on, but was like, okay, I'll sleep in bed. It's fine. I'll protect you. And it turns out it was just my guides and like different things. Like nothing was malicious about it, but I was scared because I didn't know what to perceive it through. So then I got into a really yucky, horrible relationship. When I finally got out of that abusive relationship, I realized like I was out of things to be afraid of. All the bad stuff had happened. For the most part. And so I was like, cool, I'm ready. I want my intuition to come back, like bring back all the magic stuff. And that didn't work because that's not exactly how that works. Nothing really came. And I had to go on the journey of kind of uncovering that and reawakening myself in a lot of ways. Which is a huge reason that I do the work that I do now, because everything that I confronted in that space all had the narrative of like, it's going to be hard, but it'll be worth it. Or you got to study really hard at this, or it's going to be challenging to overcome. Or it's going to be so painful, but you'll get to the other side, like shadow work and those types of things. And that really pissed me off, to be totally honest. I was like, I just did all the hard stuff. Like I refuse to believe that magic is going to be that way too. So I kind of, on that note of ignoring rules, bent all of the rules to fulfill and was like, how can I do this easy and fun? And that has always been kind of my strategy kind of since then. So very intuitive. It's a very part of my life, but that is always my number one thing is if you want your intuition to be better, have fun with it and play with it and don't think of it as a chore. Yeah. And on that note that you mentioned it just right before you asked the question, where you said, how to trust yourself more. And I think trusting yourself is super valid. One thing I will say though, I always try to kind of remove that pressure because I think it puts a lot of pressure on us. Like, how do you trust yourself? It's like when we're logical people and we look at ourselves and we're like, I don't know, I'm fallible as hell. Like, how am I going to trust myself?
Right.
And putting that externally on trust the spirit support that you have, trust your guides and lean in on that. And it doesn't have to be blind trust, but it's something that you can start to work on that makes it just a smidgen easier to lean in on your own intuitive abilities.
Yeah. And this is really fascinating. I want to ask you more about this awakening process, because this is something I think a lot of the flirties are going to relate to, where it's like, it's reminding me, or I'm seeing a lot of parallels with inner child healing, perhaps, of, right? Like there was a period in our life where we were carefree and we really didn't have a lot of stressors or worries. Things were pretty much fun, to an extent. And then over time, we encounter those difficulties and some experiences that, we have to grow up, and we kind of lose that magic a little bit. And getting it back, it's not the snap of a finger. Like there's a little bit more to it, but this kind of, sometimes in yoga, we hear it referred to as deconditioning or deprogramming. Maybe the flirties have heard those terms before, but I love reawakening, or this practice of reconnection. Rather than taking things away, it's about maybe relearning or reforming a new relationship with yourself, or a different relationship. So I want to, a little bit more about that process for you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So on the inner child note, I think part of it is very inner child-esque in a lot of ways. But I will also like shout out some people on an energetic, like soul level hated being a child. And like, that's just like a soul level thing where some people don't really have inner child work to do because they just did not enjoy the experience of being little and not powerful. And like, that doesn't work with their soul stuff. So it's more of awakening, like what is the most divine, happy, flowy, magical part of you, whatever that is. And that could be even not from this lifetime, right? Like that could be popped in from a soul journey you had 2,000 years ago. Who knows? But that's that kind of connection, that like reawakening is allowing yourself to work with the forces that are around you. I always describe it like this. when we're born, when we come into planet, we have like a beautiful, magical, flowing river inside of us. It's like a river of magic.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe yours is super wide and vast and rushing, and maybe yours is a little bit of a trickle at the moment, but it's there. Every single person has one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we proceed to spend the rest of our lives doing our best to pollute that thing as much as we can. So we like, maybe someone makes fun of us, and all of a sudden we're like, okay, well, I'm going to throw in some beavers because that really messed me up. So they're going to build a dam. And maybe then we get a limiting belief from social media or a magazine or something like that around ourselves, and in go some plastic bags. Maybe we have a significant trauma that happens to us, and we're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to throw a bunch of garbage in there. Like we pollute, and we really make it harder for us to access that river of magic. So what I found when I was trying to open it, because my whole motivation at the time, I had an anxiety disorder and all these different things, is I was like, I just want to feel better after this horrible abusive relationship. And I want to have my psychic stuff back. So I started to come at it from the I want my psychic stuff back angle instead of the just healing angle. That being said, mental health and spiritual health go hand in hand, and they do in this process too. So it started out being like, how can I remove this trash, these garbage things from my magical river? And a lot of that was maybe some therapy stuff. I also did a lot of limiting belief work and block pulling, and releasing these thoughts and blocks that I had established around that I had either gotten this lifetime or came in with my ancestry or came in from a past life that were just kind of stuck in that space. And being really active. And I also played. I played as much as I could with the magic. I tried. I let myself not have to know everything about everything. And I let myself not be perfect. And I failed a ton. Constantly. I would try to like, oh, I'm going to do this magic thing, and it wouldn't work. And I was like, I decided at the very beginning of my journey that if I'm going to try something and it doesn't work, it's not my fault.
Okay.
And I really settled into that belief, and it helped so much because, I don't even know how many, I read so many self-help books. I did so many things. I tried all these different things. And I would say probably 80% of it did nothing for me, like was not particularly helpful. But that didn't really matter because the journey of reading and connecting or trying this magical thing or doing tarot pulls, or I was a Hellenic polytheist for a while. So I did a lot of like paganism work there. Weren't things that were long lasting, but they were pieces of puzzles that I didn't realize I had needed. And so I allowed myself like, well, I failed at that, but I learned these things, or this didn't work, but I'm going to try it this way. What if I switch it over here? And so then it became a creative exercise that I was eternally and perpetually curious about. Less of a punishment, more of a curiosity, made all the difference.
I love that. And I feel like I relate to so much of what you're sharing in my own experience of healing and reawakening my own inner magic too. It's like I've just come at it from this place of curiosity and tried not to apply this judgment to it that something is right or wrong because it didn't quote unquote work, or it didn't maybe work fast enough, or I didn't get the result I wanted. And if you're coming at it from that angle, it makes things so black and white, good or bad, and there's more. Then it's not fun. Then it's like you're searching for that quick fix, the magic pill, the overnight solution, which when it comes to this work, there are going to be some practices that you're more aligned with, I think, but there's not necessarily this moment of just the healing's done, right? We're good. That's
I know. Even when I do limiting belief work now, and I have an energetic system to pull and release limiting beliefs really, really fast. So I can identify a limiting belief and pull it within 3 seconds, and we can be good. That's great. But it never stops. I've done it every single day for 15 years or however long I've done it, and it's still happening. And that's okay. I mean, that's like we're all victims of the human condition in that capacity.
Absolutely.
But the healing doesn't end. I'm sorry, everybody. I really wish there was a checkbox that we could check, but there's just not.
It's not linear, right? There's not a point A to a point B. It's somewhat circular, right? I always equate healing with the hero's journey where, you kind of experience, just because you go through ebbs and flow of life, different phases where, there's going to be some seasons where it's a little bit harder and there are some struggles, but over time you've got the tools and practices and you've done enough healing that without a shadow of a doubt that you're going to get through those times, and you trust yourself that you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And magic is just like a boost. Like psychic stuff is just a boost, and it's like kind of the carrot at the end that can help you get through some of the hard stuff. Especially if you reject the idea that it has to be hard. Because it doesn't have to be hard. Yes, it can be serious sometimes, but let me be the first to tell you, like, spirit is so deeply unserious. Like, magic is so deeply unserious after, like, we have to survive, but also I think we also have to play and we have to connect in those ways and have fun with it. Like, the less serious it is, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this theme of fun is going to continue out the conversation as well. I want to come back to, because I had, honestly, just a moment ago, a big moment of deja vu, which was so like, I've either had this, maybe it's a video of yours I saw a while ago, or I don't know. I've had this conversation before in some form or fashion.
I wholeheartedly believe you in that space. Deja vu has been a trip lately too, because we're having a lot of timeline stuff happen.
Yes.
Don't overthink time. It's supposed to be confusing because we made it up. But really it's just like two different parallel versions of whatever we're doing kind of combining together, and we're having a lot of that stuff kind of happen. Yeah. So that's also, if you're having kickoffs of deja vu or like glitch in the matrix style stuff of like, I know I put this there. It was gone yesterday. I couldn't find it all day and now it's back. Yes. Correct. Or even just like, this has happened multiple times with friends. And my husband and I have been like, oh, this is what you said in this conversation. And they've been like, no, this is what we talked about. And we just go, timelines.
Timelines.
It's fine.
But when limiting beliefs, I think this has got to be part of the discussion today. This is a big thing that comes through in my work as a coach, right? It's like trying to notice and identify those points of resistance, those blocks, the I can'ts, right? Just those thoughts, patterns, beliefs, stories, narratives that we tell ourselves that become a part of who we are. Right. And this awakening process, reawakening is, we're writing a new page, we're shifting a chapter around, something like that. So in your work, when it comes to limiting beliefs, how do you get rid of those?
Well, the first thing is you have to identify what the heck the belief is.
Yeah.
That is always number one. Not always. There's ways to do it without identifying it, but it just becomes a little bit more ambiguous. But if you're really like, I'm stuck, let's just say in dating area, like you look at dating area and then decide, how do you feel about dating? Like, and I always recommend write it down, or if you're not a big writer, that's totally fine. Just have your phone open and talk to it with record mode, like something to take notes. But be like, how do I actually feel about dating? How do I feel about myself dating? Whatever. Go through and like just have kind of a brain dump moment of just all of your feelings, all of your thoughts, whatever. Do not get into it too deeply as you're doing it. Just kind of spit it all out. And then you can kind of circle back around and really look at it and be like, ooh, where are things that I don't want to have that thought or feeling anymore? Or this one feels really limiting or whatever. And what I always recommend doing is when you're looking in that space, always make sure you're getting to the bottom-most belief, the thing that's on the bottom of the tower of blocks.
Okay.
Because if you're pulling something from the middle, you're still got that bottom structure sitting in the place. And the way you do that is if you look at a belief and you just ask yourself why. Ask yourself, I always say 5 times, because it gets down to that like inner child, like, because that's the energy. That's the 5th why. And you want to get to that space because that's going to show you that tower of blocks, the things that are holding up those structures. And then I would put it into a statement that is, hopefully doesn't have the word not in it. For some reason, the word not does not have an energetic signature. I don't fully know why, but it doesn't. So you always want to have it as like an affirming statement, even if it's not a non-affirming thing. It makes me feel like I'm not enough. Well, it makes me feel worthless would then be the thing without the not.
Okay.
And then you're going to like identify what you would like to replace that with. When it comes to limiting belief work, not just in like a mental health capacity, but actually in an energetic sense, your limiting belief is holding a spot in your energy. And when we pull that, we want it filled with something else, or else that spot will be filled with insert whatever gets inserted there. And that's not what we want to do.
Okay.
So when you give your brain or your energy, this is what I actually want it to be replaced with, you're already identifying the actual energy that's coming in. Our body and our energies really like to bring new energy into our space. It makes us feel validated, honestly, as like an energetic being of like, ooh, I'm doing magic stuff. Like I'm bringing energy in. So the second that you can start to identify, this is what I'd like instead of this, that's going to start releasing that for you. You can also ask your spirit guides to help. You can also like visualize yourself pulling that out and putting the new energy in. Might take some practice. There's other techniques to get into with that would take a little bit more explanation on
Yeah.
an energy sense. But at the very base level, that's going to really start to help, really, really start to help. And again, that reminder, like you're not alone in this process. Your spirit
Yes.
guides really are there to help you.
Yeah.
Everyone has them, even if you're like, there's no way. You do. I promise. You channeled thousands of people and tens of thousands of guides at this point, and I've never ever come across a person that doesn't have them, which is also kind of crappy because sometimes they're like helping not so great people do not so great things. But everyone has them to help you on your journey.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. So maybe one of your limiting beliefs is I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy of love. Instead of replace that, take out the not, which makes complete sense to me because it's kind of just reinforcing the belief in many ways. And so replacing that with I feel perhaps worthless, something like that, if that's a limiting belief. Or I feel like I hear from the flirties a lot that just they start to lose hope and belief a little bit, right? Is it ever going to happen for me? Is the love I want, that I seek, I feel like I deserve, is it even out there? So reframing that as an I statement limiting belief. And then what I love from yoga, and this is a lot of what I do in yoga when I teach, it's like that energy can either be created nor destroyed, but it can be transformed. And so think about this limiting belief, like you just said, it's a block of energy. And if you were to take that out, think what you could replace it with. Yeah. Transform
And that
it.
energy already exists in the universe. You can be like, when you see that, like what I want to replace it with, see if you can see what that energy looks like, or what would you imagine that feeling like, or does it have flowers with it, or is it sparkly, whatever, and see if you can really imbue that with actual energy, things that mean something to you energetically, and then put that into the space that the other old crusty dusty belief is in before.
Let's stay with this for a moment, and then we're going to get into some spirit guide questions. But for the flirties that are, because I know I've had this thought for a long time where it's like, even if I have this limiting belief that isn't serving me, it's actually hindering me, I can't let it go. Right?
That sounds like a limiting belief.
Oh, okay. What do you mean?
I can't let go of limiting beliefs is definitely a limiting belief.
Oh, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would treat it like any other limiting belief and just start there.
So the I can't let go of the limiting belief is the limiting belief. Maybe that's if I kept asking the questions, right? The 5 questions, I would have gotten deeper, and that would have been the one that I arrived at.
Yeah, that sounds like a limiting belief for sure.
Okay.
When it comes to like a psychic stuff, like right now, which everyone can learn how to do this. I can't teach it on a podcast because it's a little bit more in depth. But for example, if you want, and I can do an example right now for your listeners, you could just pull and release that for you and put in a new one, and then it's gone for good. If you want.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, Emily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So when I do energy work, you just relax. You don't have to do anything. You might feel some tingles, chills, a little lightheadedness or something. If you do, it's just me. I just always want to warn you so you're not freaked out.
Okay.
But yeah, basically what I do is I go into the energy, I identify that spot, pull it energetically, and go out to the universe, grab the energy of the belief you want, throw it in there. So we're just going to replace that with the next truest thing. So instead of feeling like you're unable to release limiting beliefs, which is removing the not, right? We're going to flip that over to it's safe and possible to release limiting beliefs, because I don't feel that the most aligned thing would be like, I release all the limiting beliefs. That's not going to work. Your body's going to, no, but it's safe and possible. We can get behind that. So I will go ahead and do that. Hold on one moment.
Okay.
Cool. I also put the energy out there for anyone who's listening and watching. If you want that released for you as well, I just put it into a bucket. You can just consent and never work on energy without consent, and you will get it released for you too. Just take a couple breaths and it'll go. How are you feeling?
I definitely felt the tingles. Honestly, it's like time stood still for a moment, and I felt in that space very light, like very kind of airy, almost a little bit floaty. You know, that I really feel like I energetically did let something go. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, it works very, very well. It's a real system.
Yeah. That is very interesting. An unexpected turn of events here on this episode of Flirtations. Thank you. Thank you for
you're super welcome.
the energy work. That was amazing. Oh my gosh. And I think even the flirties are having a renewed breath right here in this very moment too. I love that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I mean, like, I think this is the way we should all exist. Like
Yeah.
truly in like the deepest part of my soul, like my ultimate goal would be to make like magic like a household conversation. Like, oh,
Yeah.
we can just do this. We can just fix this thing. We can just because that's how we have that access. We can totally do
Yes.
those things.
Yes.
And having conversations like this, like that's how I think we should all exist in our symbiosis state of just like, oh, well, I picked up on this and this energy's over here and we can fix this over here and make it.
Heck yeah. I love magic. More magic, please.
I know.
So for the flirties that are thinking about spirit guides now, that are wondering, maybe they feel like they've sensed them in the past, or they're skeptical about it, but what are spirit guides?
Wonderful question. I love spirit guides so much because they're literally your friends from the other side, from your higher self or your, soul on the other side, other plane, wasn't incarnated here in the flesh. They're your buddies. Like they're beings that you either knew would help with something or have made a long-term, connection with. And you're like, hey, team, I'm going to go do Earth life. This is my like general map. So we all kind of make a general map for ourselves. And this is a massive simplification, but like as for a generalization. And sometimes that has, back to your hero's journey thing, 15 different plot points on it. Sometimes it has 45, sometimes it has 5. And those are just the things that we're like, hey, this is the reason I'm going down. These are the things I need to do or that I'm, need to solve or need to experience, whatever it is.
Okay.
Please help me, spirit guides, to each of these plot points. And that's what they do is they help you navigate to get to the spots you already are planning to get to on your map. So whether you've talked to them or not, they've helped you. They've helped you since the moment you came down and started doing this Earth thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing with that is they're in agreement. They understand. They expect all the emotions you're going to have. They expect everything that's going to go down for you. They're anticipating that. So they're also not mad at you. They're not some deity that is vicious and vengeant and going to come down because you didn't listen to us enough.
Yeah.
That's not it at all. They know what's going on. They know you took an amnesia pill to come here. They're not having that expectation. They truly are just there to help. The cool thing is the more you establish a relationship with them, the more say in the type of help you get that you have.
Okay.
Because half the time they're like, well, I know I got to get you to this point. That's what I'm focused on. But if you start having a relationship and like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I really need some help and confidence over here. Or I really need some validation of this. Or could you please help me figure out this problem? Then they're like, oh, you need help with that too? Sure. Yeah, we can do that as well to get you to this plot point. Let me fix that into my thing. Okay. So it's a beings that you get to have a relationship with that really do have a hand in helping your space and helping you go through. And they're your friends. Ultimately, they're your friends.
Yeah. Who like could you share maybe one of your spirit guides? Like, do they have shapes? Are they people? Are they animals? Could they be all of the above?
They could be literally anything out there in the universe. Like truly they can be.
Okay.
I have a rather big plethora of guides. Some of them help all the time and have been here for a really long time. And some of them have given me one message and then never came back. And that's totally fine. That was their role for whatever part of my journey. Yeah. One of my main protector guides, he's a dragon. His name is Boris. He picked that name for himself. Which is a very dragon thing to do. They all just arbitrarily choose a name.
The dragon.
Well, the funniest part about it, when he first, so he came in 2013. He popped in. He was supposed to actually arrive with me from birth and be my protector the whole time, but he got like lost, like down here on plane, like the energy. And he finally found me and he like slammed into my back and he was like a little dragon at the time. And he's like, I found you. And I was like, what is happening? Going on. And then over time, he grew to his actual size. He's a very big dragon now. He always makes me insist on saying that. So he is large now. He was not always small. But he's a protector of mine. And when I asked him, I was like, okay, well, what's your name? He's like, yeah, you can't pronounce that. I'll pick one eventually. And I was like, okay. And so when he did, he pops in out of nowhere one day and it's like Boris. And I was like, what? That's what we're going with? And it was during when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister of the UK.
Oh my gosh.
It was the only Boris I had. I was like, are we sure we want that name? Like, what we're doing? But that's what he went with. So Boris is my protector dragon. He's around pretty much all the time. He helps me both physical protection and spiritual protection. So if I need additional warding on my house, or maybe there's a ghost trying to pop in because they're not really allowed in here, whatever, he chews them along. So he's around often. I have other deities I work with for other things and other guides, etc. But
yeah, I love that. I feel like the ones I've seen, all of mine have been angels.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and I don't know, like they kind of look like the sort of gargoyle-ish type angels, right? You may see on a
Mhm.
church or like a, old European building or something like
Yeah.
that. And I don't know their names. I don't know that I've had sort of a conversation with them with words, but more so maybe a conversation with energy. And I definitely feel them. And
Mhm.
they've helped me so much. They've
Yeah.
just like when you need a little bit of that shielding, a little bit of that protection, or maybe you just need to, like we were doing earlier, just let go. They've been like,
Mhm.
it's okay. I'm here. I'll catch you. Right. Like you're not going to
Yeah.
fall. Yeah.
Yeah, they all have kind of different functions within your team system too. So like sometimes you'll have a protector one, or maybe someone who helps you with just decision making, or maybe there's someone that helps you with
Yeah.
inspiration or bringing in the right people, or
Okay.
maybe someone's helping you with mundane everyday things like where you work, where you live, where you eat, like that type of
Yeah.
thing. They all kind of do different functions there to like give
Yeah.
you a full supported system. And there's no like set number that you're supposed to have or anything.
Okay.
And but you could have 3, you could have 85. It just depends on what you decided was best for
Yeah.
yourself, kind of on the other side, and who
Yeah.
decided to step up and help you. And when with that energetic communication, that's also part of it. It's just kind of having that back and forth. And they don't need a name, by the way. Like there's
Right.
many times where a guide will pop in. I'm like, "What's your name?" And they just kind of look at me, and I'm like, "Cool. Well, I'm going to call you Banana Hammock until you give me a name.
Right.
And if you don't like that, I'll just this is just what we're doing." So it doesn't have to have that sort of structure. So you feeling that for years is very interesting. It's very interesting. You see them all, have had, they're all mostly angels beings, but in the gargoyle sense. I wonder
Yeah.
if it's more some angel stuff and maybe some fae stuff too, because they do tend to look that way as well.
Maybe. And they're always with me in the car. That is when they communicate with me. It's not necessarily when I'm at home or I'm at work. It is like when I'm traveling, but specifically in the car. Yes. And I gotta say, they've really looked out for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is so fun. So I want to offer the flirties now some strategies for perhaps talking with their spirit guides, getting to know their spirit guides, or more broadly, talking to the universe, right? I'm
Yeah.
thinking of like
Mm-hmm.
when you're just looking up to the heavens, to the sky, or sort of shrugging your shoulders. Why, right? When, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
asking these big questions. How could we maybe develop a stronger relationship with the universe?
Yeah. So the first thing I actually want to bring up with that is Claire senses in
Yes,
general,
I'm so
because
glad you did.
yeah. Yeah. So what will end up happening is oftentimes, anytime you've ever asked for a sign, you've received one. I promise. Even if you're like, no, I haven't. You have. You probably just missed it because you
Yeah,
didn't specify
yeah,
what it was, or you weren't paying attention to the right sense, or you name it.
yeah.
And that also goes with communication with your guides, with the universe. If you're not aware of what senses you have and the ways that you naturally communicate, it's very difficult to feel like you're getting communication back. So we have 8 psychic senses. Just to be really clear on this, these are not psychic abilities. Those are different. These are the ways you perceive energetic information. A
Hmm.
psychic ability, for example, would be like talking to past loved ones, right? Like mediumship,
Hmm.
that you can see those past loved ones, or you could hear them, or you could feel them, or you could just know they're there, or you could taste
Hmm.
their favorite food. All of those are senses that you would use to perceive that particular
Hmm.
gift. So just to kind of put that to the side there.
Hmm.
So these are just the ways that you're going to perceive energetic information.
Okay.
Like you said, there's 8. The one people are very aware of is clairvoyance, and that one means
Yeah.
clear sight. That's where you can see energetic information.
Okay.
Either with your physical eyes or in your mind's eye. Mind's eye is most common because our human brain gets real freaked out by physical eye stuff. So chances are good you probably shut that down when you were
Yeah.
little if you are a very clairvoyant person. If you're a very visual learner, chances are good you have a lot of clairvoyance. If you're very good at like memorizing the way things look, that type of thing, or have a very active imagination. For those of you
Hmm.
listening, I did air quotes around that because I
Hmm.
don't think imagination is what we think it is. Um, but that is clairvoyance. Then there's clairaudience, which is clear hearing, where you hear energetic information, both inner ear or outer ear.
Okay.
And then there's claircognizance, which is your just knowing psychic sense. Now, this one is the one that I think is so predominant amongst us, but it's the one that is the easiest to ignore because it's the one that's sometimes the hardest to trust.
Okay.
Because, and I bet most of the flirties have had this experience. Have you ever just known something, just poof, out of nowhere? I just know I should not
Absolutely.
park over there. I just know that person's bad news.
Yep.
Someone comes to you for advice, and all of a sudden you're like, "Well, you just have to do these things," and they're like, "Wow, could you repeat that?" And you're like, "Ugh, no, I really don't even know what I said, but it just." There you go.
Yep.
That's that. You just know, poof, here's a drop of information. It's a very powerful psychic sense. And then there's clairsentience, which is your physical feeling. where you physically feel energetic information. This is your
Okay.
chills, right? When you get a chill, if you get a pressure here,
Yeah.
if someone gives you a bad feeling physically in your body, your stomach reacts. That's clairsentient. And then clairempathy, where you get emotional. You emotionally perceive energetic information. So maybe you get a flush of anxiety if someone's not super good, or if one of your guides is near you, maybe that gives you like this weird burst of happiness. You're like, you must be in the room. I feel really happy right now. Or if there's a ghost in the corner that's sad, you feel the sadness before you understand the presence, right? You're really understanding it through an emotional lens.
Okay.
Then there's clairtangency, which is touch. You have to touch something to receive the energetic information. This is a lot of times when, if you've ever seen like mediums help people find missing persons, and they're like, can I have a piece of their clothing? And they hold it. That's clairtangency. They're really touching it to get that understanding. And this can also, if you're like a very tactile person in general, if you need to fidget with something in order to think, chances are good you're probably clairtangent.
Okay.
And then there's clairgustance and clairsalience, which is clear taste and clear smell. So you taste energetic information or you smell energetic information. And of course, if those senses are strong for you naturally, you probably have those. Mine are garbage naturally. Those are my least used ones. So even in my day-to-day, I barely have a sense of smell at all. So it doesn't work. But if I do get a smell in a reading or something, I'm like, well, this is a spirit smell. I can tell you that much because I don't smell otherwise. But those are all the different ways you can perceive that energetic information. So when it comes to communicating with the universe, you want to start thinking, what are my strongest senses? And an easy way to do this, think about times in your life when you've had maybe a magical moment, or you've gotten a validation, or something has felt super special. How did you perceive that moment? What made it feel special to you? What sense did you use? And then start looking at those senses. Those are probably your most predominant ones. So when you ask the universe for guidance or validation, pay attention to those senses over the next couple of days, because that's where you're going to get the messages coming through. It truly is like a night and day difference. I'm not even kidding. The second you realize that, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have to try to see stuff. I should just be listening.
Yeah.
I can do that. Or, like, oh, just knowing, or a physical feeling. Amazing. So that's huge. And especially if you're in a spot where you're feeling rather hopeless, or you're feeling really let down by something, you really want to communicate through the universe. The number one thing I recommend you do after you understand your clear senses is ask for a validation that is specific, something that your guides, the universe, whoever can send you, to make sure you know you're not alone in this, or to make sure you know you're on the right path, or to make sure you know that you are being supported. Mine, for example, is rainbows. When I came up with that, this was 12 years ago now, a long time ago now, when I was like, maybe I should tell them what sign to send me. Maybe I'm just missing it. What if I like just tell them, and then maybe that'll work? It did. Spoiler. But I was like, I don't know, I'll come up with, I guess, maybe rainbows. Let's do rainbows. And I wrote that down. And I live in a place where it does not rain. And I was thinking like a rainbow in the sky, right? I was like, it does not rain here.
Yeah.
Why did I pick that? That was super dumb. And I like immediately got into my head. As we do. And then that day, my daughter came home from kindergarten, and she was like, look, Mom, look what I learned to draw today. And it was a page covered in rainbow, like 47. Like it was covered in rainbows. And I was like, touche. You got it.
The universe got you there.
Okay, fine. And I've heard countless stories just like that, where someone's like, I picked red cardinals, but I live in LA. That was super dumb. But then I went to a yard sale 2 days later, and the woman had collected red cardinals, and they were on every single piece. So ask for a specific validation. Be like, hey, and it doesn't have to be as a yes or no answer. It's just a, hey, universe, if I just need to know you're supporting me, can you please, whenever I'm feeling alone, or whenever you need to get my attention, can you please send me XYZ thing? It could be a song, it could be a number. Those of you who see 1111 or 222 or whatever all over the place, probably one of your validations. It could be a material that fluffy material. I mean, the sky is the limit. One thing I do say with that, just don't pick, like, if you own a black cat, maybe don't pick black cats. The
universe is always talking to you there.
Right. But that's going to really start that conversation between you and the universe, because then when you get that validation, you can start to be like, ooh, what are you getting? What else is there? And pause and go through your senses and see what other information you perceive. And move on to the next one you see it.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. And I know the Flirties are like, they're thinking about this right now. Which maybe of the 8 clair senses do I identify with most, or which experiences have I had, right? And you've had the chills when you just had that inner knowing. But I love this, being able to play with it and then talk to the universe, right? through validation, right? That
Mhm.
the universe and your spirit guides, they are there for you. They're supporting you. They're listening, right?
Yeah.
It's that energetic exchange. This is so, so cool. And I think I want to ask now, because I know there's going to be some flirties that are maybe they didn't ask for the black cat and they have a black cat, but let's just say a bird, a rainbow, something like that. And now, right, they're looking for it everywhere. They're actually so hyper focused on receiving that message.
Mhm.
Yeah, is that an experience you see?
Oh yeah. The universe really likes to knock us down when we have unhealthy attachment. I'm just gonna like throw that in there. So if you're like, okay, it's gonna be a purple octopus, and you're just like hyper focused on that, and you look for the next 4 days, you're like, I need to see the purple octopus.
Hmm.
More often than not, the universe will be like, yeah, I am not gonna show that to you until you stop hyper fixating on it.
Totally.
Oh, wait. So on that note, if you don't see your thing right away, just ask again. It's okay. You could have missed it. You don't know. It's not like you're doing something wrong. It's not like you're not being supported, but just be like, hey, I haven't seen the purple octopus and I think I'm fixating on it. So could you guys please send that to me again and just make it inevitable that I see it? I just make it inevitable all the time. It works so well.
Okay.
So well.
Mhm.
And be like, make it inevitable that I see it, making sure I don't miss it. And then don't be afraid to broaden your scope a little bit.
Okay.
So if you're like, okay, it needs to be a purple octopus, be like, well, if I don't see it, I'm still supported. It's totally fine. Like, let that kind of go.
Okay.
But also maybe someone says octopus in passing conversation.
Right.
Maybe,
right.
like
You hear
maybe
it as a
it's
song lyric or something like that.
there's
Yeah.
a song lyric, or maybe it's on a little kid's shirt in the grocery store. You're like, okay.
Yep.
Like broaden that perspective instead of feeling like it needs to come to you like I did. Like it needs to be a rainbow in the sky and then it's on a piece of paper,
Yeah.
right? So it can be different. The other thing with that too is every synchronicity has meaning. And I
Yes.
deeply mean that in my
Yes.
soul. So if a synchronicity is something where, for example, you see a lot of repeating numbers in one day, it's enough to
Mhm.
catch your attention. You're like, this is kind of weird. Why am I
Mhm.
seeing all these repeating numbers? Or maybe you think of a song and then the next day it plays on the radio and then 2 days later someone else says it and you're like, well, that's odd. I haven't
Mhm.
thought of this in years and now here it is all at the same time.
Mhm.
Those synchronicities, those combination moments that kind of make you go,
Yeah. A little bit of a
funky.
pause. Yeah.
Take that, ask for one of those. If you're like, okay, I haven't given me a validation sign, I'm hyper fixated on it. Just give me a synchronicity. That broadens that scope
Okay.
and allows you to still find that validation
Okay.
if you're too hyper focused on it.
All right.
Because you're like, okay, something's going to happen. Some synchronicity is going to occur. Something will be in that way. Because everyone's had a synchronicity at some point. Everybody
Yes.
has. Like, that's always been a thing for everybody. Something been like, oh, that's, the world works in mysterious ways. It's that moment.
Mhm.
Right? Those moments. And you can even think back and be like, oh, have I had experiences like that? Was there a specific sign or symbol that was associated with? Maybe that's your validation because you already have experience with it.
Mhm.
But you can broaden that scope a little bit and still get the validation that you're looking for.
Okay. Super helpful. I'm going to try that strategy as well. Cause sometimes I will do this where it's like, yeah, I'm looking for the sign and then that's all I can, right? I'm so hyper focused and fixated on that. And you're right. The universe, they're like, we're going to have a little bit of fun with you, Benjamin. Where?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is like the universe wants to help us move forward, or your guides want to help you move forward.
Yes.
If you're hyper focused on something so intensely, that is you standing still staring at something and being like, why won't you move?
Yeah.
That's not you moving towards it.
Ugh.
That's you being like, you're right here and I only look at you. And the universe is like, hey,
So
so you need to
true.
take 2 steps this way and 1 step that way. And then you can have that thing, but you can't just,
Stay still.
and so
Yeah.
it'll do that.
Yeah.
I will also say another strategy that can be very, very helpful, especially when talking to your spirit guides.
Mhm.
Start asking them nothing questions, just questions that are silly and dumb, not like the big stuff. Because
Okay.
we really want to ask them, of course, like, what is my purpose? Or like,
Yeah.
should I leave my job? Right? These
Yeah.
huge, big questions. And our human brain goes, absolutely not. We do not want that energy. We do not want that answer. Because
Mhm.
our human brain's job is literally to just keep us alive.
Mhm.
If yesterday we sat on the couch, ate ice cream, and cried, but we didn't die, our human brain's like, that was good.
Good
Let's
job.
do
Yeah.
that again. And we're now being like, hey, human brain, we want someone else to speak through you. And the brain's like, let's try. Equals. So instead of asking those big questions, just throughout the day when you think about it, just think with the intention to your spirit guides, like, what's your favorite color? What should I have for lunch? Should I watch this or this on TV tonight?
Okay.
Just those
Okay.
nothing questions, because your brain doesn't care about that. It's not going to do anything. That's not life changing. Who cares if someone's favorite color is purple? Like they're not, it's not going to mind. So if you think with that kind of intention and then just ask and then run through your senses, what what pops into your head? What do you just know? Did you see an image? Did you smell a smell? It doesn't have to be in exact relation to the question to still be a message from your guides.
Okay.
So the big thing with this one is whatever pops in, if you're like, what's your favorite color? And they're like, pineapple, be like, pineapples are cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And just move on, because you're opening a tiny door for them to throw something through. And maybe it's something you need to know. So maybe 2 days from now, someone walks up to you and they're wearing a pineapple shirt and you're like, oh, wait a second. I had a thing with this. And that starts to actually create that back and forth conversation too.
So much fun. As we're recording this, I honestly cannot wait to listen back to this episode myself, because I know I'm going to get so many takeaways and hear it with like a fresh perspective. And in these last just few minutes, this has gone absolutely flown by. Thank you again so much for being on Flirtations today. Just coming back full circle to this theme of magic. Some just maybe final words, parting words of wisdom for the flirties on how to just connect to their inner magic.
Yeah. First of all, you are literally energy made flesh. You are magic. Like this whole thing is magic. Science doesn't even fully know how we work still. Yeah. That's incredibly cool. Don't let yourself forget that. Like, you are in no means powerless. You have a whole team supporting you. You've absolutely got this. Yes. The other thing I just kind of want to say with that too is you are not wrong for wanting the things you want. You're not wrong for desiring the connections you're desiring.
Yes.
Maybe something needs to shift. Or you need to learn something before you get there, or maybe you're looking in the wrong places or things like that. But just know that, because I think sometimes we get really, really hard on ourselves. Whether it's I want more magic, more psychic stuff, or I want love, or whatever it is. Or even I had someone the other day say, I love money. And I was like, you have the right idea. Like, this is something you're allowed to love the things that support you.
Yes.
And like, we're so conditioned to not feel that way. And I think a big part of connecting with our magic and really bringing in the life we want is to remind ourselves, like, it's okay to want these things. Like, I'll get to have the human experience. And even if it's not working exactly right now, or maybe it's working in a different way, I can still want these things and still move my energy towards these things and not bypass life in the meantime.
Yeah.
So I just always want to remind people of that, because no guilt. Guilt is stupid.
Yes, like you get to, I mean, this is Flirtations. There's a lot of flirties out there dating, or they're in relationships, right? It's like you get to love, like go for it, right? Like, we've got this, YOLO sort of mentality, right? You literally are a magic being of energy, and everything that you dream of, that you envision, it's possible.
Yeah. And you came down for some reason. And I don't really subscribe to the idea that we're here to just learn. I don't view Earth as a school. I think that's a very limited idea, and also kind of lends itself to kind of us punishing ourselves if we don't do it correctly, which I think is garbage. Instead, I think you came down to experience certain things. And those experiences from our perception down here might be good, or might be bad, or might be not fun, but you came to experience certain things. And in that case, we get to embrace everything, because it might be part of those core experiences. And so leaning in more in that space as far as life purpose goes, instead of like, well, I'm here to learn all these lessons, hopefully I do it right, it's going to be way more effective.
Yeah. Gosh, I think so too. Emily Dexter, thank you so much. I want to send the flirties your way, to your socials, to your YouTube, to learn more about you, work with you. How could they do that?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on here. I do have my own podcast. I run it with I run it with a co-host, my business partner, Crystal Lynn. They are an astrologer and a folk magician. So we do a lot of like magic and forecasts for the week and just energy weirdness. We talk a lot about how fiction books heal you. And we have a writing program for people who want to write intuitive fiction that does heal you. So that's called The Alchemist's Inkwell.
Okay.
And that's on all the podcasty places. My handle on everything is Liker of Words.
Yes.
So on TikTok, which will still be here. I really feel it will. Yep. TikTok, YouTube, doing a lot of stuff on shorts and a lot of educational videos over there. Instagram, Blue Sky, all the places. Okay. And then if you want to work with me, I do have some digital courses. If you want to really get connected more with your spirit guides, I have a spirit guide course. It's a really simple one. Digital, you'll get a lot out of it. I have a beginning channeling course, and then I have a couple more in-depth ones, one to communicate with the universe and one to like open your psychic abilities. Yes. As well as I do offer some like mentorship programs. I mentioned my book writing program. It's called the Guild of Writers. Yeah. But also I do like an in-depth if you're like already at spiritual 101 and you want to go 201 or 301, I do a mentorship there as well. And as well as, of course, I do readings and group readings and things of that nature as well. And group trips. We go all over the world and channel history in different places. So all of that information is on my website, which is emilydexterpsychic.com.
Absolutely fascinating. I will have those links here in the show notes for this episode. Sending the flirties your way. Emily Dexter, thank you so much for being on Flirtations today.
Thank you for having me. This was super fun. I really appreciate it. And again, your community is amazing. And I really am I love what you do here. The energy is great. And yeah, thank you. It was great.
Flirties, that is a wrap on this episode of Flirtations, where we did some talking, some chatting with the universe and dated intuitively, connecting to our own inner knowing, our own inner magic. Thank you so much to Emily Dexter for being on the show today. This was an absolutely, yes, that fangirl moment at the beginning was absolutely real, as she was really instrumental in my own coaching journey and just my journey in loving myself and really trusting that I'm exactly where I need to be. What is meant for me will be for me. I hope you got some incredible takeaways from this episode today. And thank you, Emily, so much for being on the show. Okay, flirties. Thank you so much for listening, for tuning in, for streaming wherever you may be in the world. Couldn't do any of this without you. Please rate, review, subscribe to the show if you haven't already. If you have, thank you so much from the bottom of my flirty heart. Yeah, let's spread BFE, Big Flirt energy, all over the world. Share this episode with someone, you want to share some dating magic with. Yes, that might need to hear it. I love you for it. Okay, flirty. Signing off officially. Yeah, it's time for me to go. Officially here at Flirt Headquarters. My name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach and Gay Libra. Flirty. Happy flirting.